A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Hand-picked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Good to be back for us after a brief hiatus. Thank you to everyone for bearing with it, or bearing through it with us there as we took a week off. But I think we are back with some good content and the start of a series.
It's time
to get us through the rest of September, essentially, until training camp starts.
It's time. The season is ramping up. Like, we have this sort of runway to get to the NBA season, and we're going to start that by talking about Bradley Beal today. But before we get to the deep dive on Bradley Beal, I did want to mention, because I think it'll be maybe talked about even more tonight, Devin Booker has been teasing his signature shoe from Nike on Instagram and Twitter. And it appears we're on the precipice of a player on the Suns having a signature shoe for the first time since I don't know when. Do you have any idea? I was trying to think about this earlier today. I don't know that there has been a player that had a signature shoe, at least with a major shoe brand, like a major shoe deal, the entire time that I've been a fan of the Suns.
So I'm not a sneaker guy.
I mean, Chris Paul, I guess. But he doesn't have signature shoes, right? But he is with Jordan.
Yeah, but Chris Paul doesn't really count because that wouldn't have been during his son's tenure anyway. Like I said, I'm not a sneaker guy, so I honestly don't know. Nash, I assume, never had a shoe like that sold, right?
I don't even remember what he wore.
I don't know.
I'm sure people are kicking themselves listening to us say that.
I'm sorry. I'm just not going to say anymore because I honestly I don't know about shoes. I might as well be a boomer, totally out of touch. I think it's cool for Book to have a signature shoe, and it's cool that my favorite team is going to have a player who will have a signature shoe. That's about all I can say about it, to be honest with you. I know we saw like a teaser for what they're going to look like, but we're not even 100% sure what they're going to look like based on that. So there's
some rumored photos of in the most unflattering way possible showing the shoes that made me a little nervous, but I'm still excited to see them no matter what. And I'm sure, as with all shoes, there will be good looking ones and worse looking ones depending on the colorways that you get. But the thing that I've been thinking about when it comes to this shoe and this shoe deal is the marketing that comes along with it. You know, with Devin Booker, he's an interesting player to try to market. There's this subset of fans that are predisposed not to like him just based on the way that people reacted to his career early in his career. and the fact that he eliminated such large fan bases in the playoffs in his first time in the playoffs. And Nike is going to make a major push, I think, because they don't have a lot of young stars signed right now, and I think Devin Booker is one of the major ones. Ja Morant being the other one, which is complicated right now for reasons that I don't have to really get into. Devin Booker's he's the guy that they're really going to be pushing this year. And even it started with the videos that Devin Booker's put. It's not like Devin Booker cut those videos out that he's putting on Instagram and Twitter. Those are Nike. Nike did those, right? And it's starting to me showing him in off-season workouts in a way that, right? What is the last thing you think of when you think of Devin Booker and off-season workouts? Or what is the first thing that comes to mind when you think of that?
Double team pickup.
Yeah.
So
right?
you're saying
and Nike...
You're saying rewrite the narrative a little bit?
They're flipping the script.
Let's flip the script, yeah. Yeah, I don't
And
mind
to
that.
have
I mean,
for-
but
Yeah.
we can also say, I think the marketing push has been increasingly behind Book for a while. Now, like we're talking about a guy who was on the cover of NBA 2K last year. So it started after the finals run.
Yes.
We are reaching new heights now as the entire league is getting behind the idea of a Suns quote-unquote super team. I think, some people will nitpick that, whether they actually think this is a true big three or whatever. But, getting behind the notion that the Suns obviously are going to be one of the favorites for the title this year. They're going to have the third most national TV games among any team behind LA and Golden State. So, everyone else has got to get with the program, essentially, whether they like it or not. And I think for the most part, Book has earned his respect with the fans. Another thing that I think is playing into it right now as well, to tie in the whole FIBA tournament into this, is Team USA just won their quarterfinal game against Italy today. They took care of business against Italy. They demolished them. Our guy, Mikal Bridges, finally had his moment. He had a good game in that one. Anthony Edwards finally let someone else cook. He passed the ball. I was happy to see that.
He got, 3 assists?
Something like that. I don't know. It's just, he's been frustrating me this tournament. But that's kind of where I'm going with this is, you look at Team USA. Team USA's in trouble. We've had this conversation before of what's the next generation of American superstardom look like after KD, LeBron, and Curry are gone. Because they're they're the dying breath of they're the last ones of their generation, and once those guys are gone, what is the future of American basketball? You look at Team USA struggling at FIBA this year, and I've thought to myself, I mean, naturally a lot of it is just because I'm a Suns fan and I talk about the Suns multiple times every week, but I've thought to myself a number of times, man, this team needs Book, or man, I can't wait until it's just this team but better, because Book will be there next year in the Paris Olympics.
Most of them are young.
Sure.
But they need a 27-year-old superstar in the way that Devin Booker is that. And because they don't have that. They have Ant, who's 22, 23.
Yeah.
He's just not ready yet.
But you look at the rest of American basketball moving forward. And
Tatum. That's the other guy, right?
Tatum's great. I mean, I like him. I do. I like Donovan Mitchell. I don't think I'm not going to retread that ground again. I don't think he's better than Booker. Anthony Davis isn't ancient yet, but I don't know if he's going to want to play in the Olympics and continues to have injury issues. And I mean, Jesus, who else is that? You mentioned Ja Morant.
KD will be 36.
I'm not even counting those
Olympics,
guys. I'm talking about the younger generation. Ja Morant has
all these guys on this team.
The issues
I think
outlined. Zion.
Tyrese Halliburton can be in that Chris Paul role.
Yeah, sure.
What Chris Paul was in the Olympics in the past. You have Zion.
But like Zion was supposed.
Bam Adebayo is a big one.
Zion was supposed to be the face of American basketball, and it's just not going to happen. We haven't seen it with Cade yet. I like him, but it's just there are a lot of question marks about American basketball and the future of it. And then here's Devin Booker, who's just about as sure of a bet as you could get right now if you're Nike or any one of these other branding companies that wants to put your money behind someone. Is he's reliable, he shows up in the playoffs, he's played in the playoffs, unlike some of these guys, he's had Olympic success, and he's still relatively young, so he's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, we're going to see Book and Mikal playing together again in the Olympics next year. I'm pretty sure about that, and that's going to be fascinating. But what we're going to see this season, just to build on that, is commercials. I just want to get back to that because I don't think it's important to basketball in the way that it's not going to impact how Devin Booker plays on the floor. But I do think it's important as to how people perceive Devin Booker. I think there's just so many examples of famous ads that came about for shoes for NBA players that impacted the perception on people. I think people, as much as they want to pretend like advertisements don't work on them, they do. Russell Westbrook, I think, is one of the greatest examples. I think his ad campaign probably helped his MVP in some sense because it was just such a I'm taking over this team now campaign, and it worked. And I think we're going to see, watching NBA games, watching sporting events, we're going to see Devin Booker commercials for Nike shoes this year that are built around his persona. And I'm excited to see what they do for that, because with Devin Booker, I think it's a fascinating thing where he's not super, super charismatic when he speaks. He's just not.
He's not.
Like Ant is.
By design, he's always been, that's his defense mechanism, is he's always been very withdrawn in his dealings with the media. But I think
he doesn't like him,
controlled marketing and ad campaigns could bring a little extra something out of him. I mean, think about it.
He's not an actor either. He doesn't,
You remember that NBA, what was it?
75.
Was it 75? Yeah. It was their promo for the upcoming NBA season, or I can't remember if it was NBA 75. And you have Booker was involved in it, but all he did was he drove up to a Kobe mural and paid his respects. But that
he, by the way, asked to not have a line.
That was the extent of his acting chops on display there. Yeah, exactly. He asked to not have a line. It's just who he is. That's his personality.
But he does have a personality outside of basketball in that he's into fashion, he's into cars, and I think those are the kinds of things where I think maybe they could try to work that into his marketing. And I'm very interested to see what Nike does with it, because they're a shoe company, right? Nike, but really they're a marketing company first. That's like the main thing they do. They make shoes for cheap and sell them for $120 because of the commercials that they make and the people that they pay to promote the shoes. And that, I think, is going to be the most fascinating thing that happens with these shoes. And I'm just really excited to see it, because we have never really seen it to the extent that we probably will see it this season with Devin Booker. And then, of course, if they continue to compete at the highest level, it's going to even get to higher heights in the future. But anyway, the next time we come onto a Patreon podcast, whether it be tomorrow or Thursday, I have a feeling we'll be talking about what the actual shoes look like and what the first round of marketing looks like for these shoes. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. Anything else on that?
I'm excited as well. That's all.
All right, let's get to it. External development for Bradley Beal. Now the story of an NBA team that traded everything and the one thing that could keep them all together. It's external development. Okay, for the format for these, usually we have a guest. We kind of threw this together sort of late here, so we didn't want to ask a guest last minute to join us. But for these, we talk about three things in all of the internal development episodes that we've done in the past. Look, this team is no longer the internal development team. This is no longer team #continuity. James Jones forced our hand, and now we have to talk about how this team can improve from players joining the team. And I think that's a fascinating thing to talk about, especially when we have a player like Bradley Beal who, yes, he's an all-star. Yes, he averaged 30-plus points in the NBA in the past, but nobody was watching. I hate to put it like that, but nobody was watching. People just were not watching the Washington Wizards on a regular basis outside of hardcore Washington Wizards fans. So now we have the opportunity to talk about him. There's three things that we talk about in these episodes. We're just stealing the format from the past. Who is he? What can he improve on? Usually that's the internal development side, but we're going to talk about, I think, for this episode, how his role can change and what he can do to help the Suns. And then lastly, how confident are we in those improvements? Because there's like the type of thing with DeAndre, and we can say, oh, he can improve by being a great three-point shooter, but then we have to talk about how confident we are in that. And there are varying levels of things that we can be confident about and not confident about when it comes to improvements. And I think that's going to be an interesting conversation for Bradley Beal. I did my research. You did your research. I watched a ton of Bradley Beal film, and I looked at a ton of stats. I'm excited to talk about him. Are you ready, Sam?
I am very ready.
Okay, let's talk about who Bradley Beal is first. And when I say Bradley Beal to you, Sam, what do you think of first?
Well, it's a little unfortunate, actually, because you already mentioned it. You stole the words right out of my mouth and pointing out that he was a 30-point per game scorer. In fact, Mike, maybe nobody was watching those iterations of the Washington Wizards. That's fair. But he was actually a multiple-time 30-point per game scorer, I'll have you know. He did it 2 seasons in a row. Do you remember the fact that he did it 2 seasons in a row?
I did not remember that,
See?
I'll be honest.
Right there. You did not remember.
I remembered 1 season. I did not remember 2 seasons.
You did not remember.
I'm looking at it now, 31.3. Just 2 years ago.
Yeah, you did not remember that Bradley Beal scored 30 points per game 2 seasons in a row. In fact, so when I think of Beal, the player who he is has changed a little bit over the past couple of years. His role changed in Washington over the past couple of years. They acquired KP, they acquired Kuzma, they tried to get other guys involved in the offense last year. Not to say that that worked, but just his offensive profile changed. But when he was at his best, in those 30-point per game seasons, I think the repertoire that he displayed offensively and his particular brand of versatility was something that is worth considering special and worth labeling and just noting how rare it was in the context of NBA history. Specifically, here are all of the players in NBA history to go multiple seasons of 30 points per game, 100 made threes, and at least 7 free throw attempts per game. So you're getting a blend of rim pressure, mid-range scoring, and also three-point scoring there. Obviously, Beal is in that list. The other guys are LeBron, KD, Kobe, James Harden, and Damian Lillard, and that is the entire list in NBA history. There are plenty of other guys who have scored 30 points per game before. Either they were 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, and they existed in an era where they didn't take enough threes, a la Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Tracy McGrady, or maybe in some contexts they exist in a more modern era, but they aren't enough of a slashing presence, like Steph Curry, who has had 30-point per game seasons but never had the blend of free throw or rim gravity that a guy like Bradley Beal has. Or they're modern examples of guys who just suck at shooting as well, like Luka Doncic and Russell Westbrook. Both have 30-point per game seasons, but did not meet the three-point shooting criteria. So his particular set of skills offensively is rare. It is historically notable, and particularly when you consider the fact that KD is also on this team, and he's been on that list multiple times. And Booker has not technically made that list, but he certainly could. It feels like any particular season he could. It's kind of crazy, just the assemblage of talent that's going to be playing before our eyes here.
I honestly, one of the first things I thought of as I was looking through all these stats and watching the film is, good Lord, that was an incredible trade that James Jones made with Chris Paul and Landry Shamet for Bradley Beal. It's just insane just how good Bradley Beal could potentially be on this team. And I think it's interesting for Suns fans to talk about Bradley Beal in particular, because there was a long time in Devin Booker's career where he's, it's still happening, to be honest. But every single time Devin Booker succeeds at something, he's compared to other players in a negative light. And so Suns fans spend a lot of time defending him against other players. Like it started with D'Angelo Russell, right? He completely passed D'Angelo Russell pretty easily. Then it was sort of Zach LaVine and Bradley Beal, and then it became Donovan Mitchell. Now it's going to be Anthony Edwards. But anyway, throughout that time, I think Suns fans were trying to defend Devin Booker versus Bradley Beal. And I think it got to a point where Bradley Beal was scoring 31 points per game in the NBA, and it was like, I don't even know how to compare these two players anymore. It's just so drastically different in how they're playing. But really, it's not in some ways, just because Devin Booker's never really had the opportunity to shoot that much on a team before, and Bradley Beal did it so efficiently. But what I think is interesting about Bradley Beal is where Devin Booker started without a point guard and then sort of went to learning how to play with a point guard. That was sort of the opposite case for Bradley Beal. He started with a point guard and played more off the ball. And then, the Wizards decided they don't want to ever have a good point guard again, apparently. And then, of course, Bradley Beal had to be the main offensive creator on his team, sort of became that de facto point guard on his team, and then learned to play as that point guard. it's sort of a opposite trajectory for both of them. But basketball-wise, they're pretty similar. You know, they're shooting guards traditionally who are good playmakers for others, who can shoot from three, shoot from mid-range, get to the rim. That's what Bradley Beal is. He's really good at drives, like you said. There's a mixture of the ability to drive to the rim and shoot that I think the Suns have not had in, I don't know when, you know, outside of just Devin Booker. But the drives are much, much more frequent than Devin Booker. In fact, I've said it on a previous podcast, so I'll mention it here. The last time the Suns had a player who drives as much per game as Bradley Beal was Eric Bledsoe in 2016.
When you mentioned the last time that they had someone who drove like that, Eric Bledsoe, again, was the name I thought of. And just to put a number to it, 10th in the NBA in drives per game. That's where Beal ranked.
And Bledsoe couldn't shoot, right?
No. Yeah, I mean,
not anything like Bradley Beal.
He could shoot a little bit, but I know what you mean. He could shoot a little bit.
It's the combination, I think, that makes him great. And now we have a bunch of stats. Traditionally, this is where we get into some interesting stats that each of us found on Bradley Beal. But one of the things I wanted to bring up to you that I think you'll like is handoffs. So the way that Devin Booker works off of handoffs is very similar to what Bradley Beal does. But Bradley Beal, in the last season, was one of the most efficient players off handoffs in the entire NBA and actually was able to find some second spectrum stats or synergy stats on this. 81 shots off handoffs last season for Bradley Beal. He played like 52 games last season because he was injured. 81 shots off handoffs, which is, as far as percentage per game, one of the highest in the NBA. And he shot 58% off of handoffs last season, which is the highest percentage among high volume players who shoot off handoffs in the NBA last season. Were you aware of that?
It's in my notes as well. Sorry to be yawning there as you're talking about the stat. It's in my notes as well that he was very efficient. Yeah. I didn't know exactly that it was the most.
58% off handoffs, I think, is kind of interesting because when trying to envision what the Suns' offense will be, it's obvious to think about these guys can all run pick and rolls, and Bradley Beal likes to run pick and rolls the same way Devin Booker does, and you know the same way Kevin Durant does, two other guys we're going to cover in this series. And you know, just thinking about these guys and their ability to pitch it up to whoever it's going to be, whether it be DeAndre Ayton, Kevin Durant on the handoff, or if it's a shooter like Eric Gordon just sort of essentially running a pick and pop with a handoff to Bradley Beal or Devin Booker, and how these guys could sort of fake those handoffs and give it to other guys, it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch. But the ability to drive and shoot off of those handoffs and be that efficient on a team with, you know, in Washington that really didn't have any shooting is pretty remarkable, and I'm excited to see how they work that into the offense this year.
It's the real, I wouldn't even call it a challenge. It's kind of the pleasure of having Frank Vogel's job right now. It's the advantage of his job is to figure this out. It should be like a fun puzzle because you're going to hear it a lot. The common theme that we'll have over these next few episodes, like Booker, Beal, KD, no matter which of these guys we're talking about, can they be effective as stationary shooters? Yes. Can they be effective with, you know, the ball in one guy's hands as isolation scorers? Yes. But clearly the best possible offense you're going to get out of a combination of these guys is if you can build these compound sets that are going to maximize all of their abilities. Because, you know, Beal could be successful as a stationary shooter if he was just standing in the corner. But to be honest, and the stats bear this out, would he be significantly more efficient just standing in the corner than, say, Yuta Watanabe? No, probably not. So the best way and the most important way to use him on offense is finding those more compound ways that are really taking advantage of his skill set. Handoffs are a great way to do it. I want to call attention to one guy who I know we both follow on Twitter, which is RB, popular Suns account on Twitter, who I saw digging into some Bradley Beal film last week. And he pointed out specifically a set that the Wizards very frequently ran between Beal and Kristaps Porzingis, who, to be honest, until I watched these videos that he posted, I did not realize that Porzingis had some of the playmaking chops that were displayed here, because essentially what the Wizards would do is they would clear everyone out on one side, and then they would just have Beal and KP, with KP working from a facilitating position at the high post, and then essentially electing to do one of a few things. Either Beal would directly take the handoff from KP, and he could score exactly as you're talking about in that handoff position. He could cut towards the basket, and Porzingis would kind of feed it to him in a give and go. Or sometimes they would fake the handoff to Beal. Due to Beal's gravity, a second defender would come, and then Porzingis would have an open lane to the basket. I think the reason RB was posting about this on Twitter is specifically to say, well, what if that was Kevin Durant in the Porzingis position? And imagine this sort of synergy that you could build between these two guys. You can have Booker spacing on the on the weak side. You could have DeAndre Ayton in the dunker spot. And, we've talked a million times about how Ayton's probably going to, the more that you have KD facilitating in the middle of the floor, the more DeAndre Ayton needs to be down low so he's not mucking up that space. And kind of he needs to be embracing the junkyard dog role, looking for offensive rebounds. But KD could be in that facilitating role in the high post. Obviously, he could rise over the top of anyone and just shoot. But he can also see over the top of a defense easily. And Beal is just working that handoff game that we already know he's so good at. Right there's an early foundation for something that works between two of your three offensive hubs.
And not to mention the simple solution on Kevin Durant in the playoffs was just anytime there was a screener involved with Kevin Durant, they put two guys on Kevin Durant. If Bradley Beal's the one running around there, can't leave him open. And you can't leave Kevin Durant open either. So the scoring gravity that Durant has compared to Porzingis, who, by the way, had a good season, but Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. We know the difference here. It's going to make it really hard when it shouldn't be hard for the Suns to have plays that involve two of these three main offensive players around the ball at all times. Just like they should do that for every single play, right?
Just to shout out Porzingis there, by the way, I just want to point out, because Beal missed a lot of games. He only played 50 games last season. 25% of Porzingis' total assists on the season went to Bradley Beal. And many of those were in those exact handoff situations.
Right. And that's pretty good for only 50 games, like you said.
Yeah. He showed off some chops. He was good.
The thing is,
it's KD, just to say that KD can do the exact same thing. Because if you're building out plays, and this is the main point here, right? If you're building out plays that feature two or three of these guys as often as possible, you need to play to their strengths. Book can come around a high screen and roll situation and skip a pass to the corner. That's something that I'm confident in his ability to do. KD, we saw him try to do it a little bit in the Nuggets series. He struggled. Like, yes, he can see over the top of defenses, but as just his natural level of playmaking ability, the precision isn't quite there. So I think KD has the ability to average 5, 6, 7 assists per game on this team, mainly playmaking.
Without dribbling, too.
Right, but mainly playmaking to these two guys, and to DeAndre Ayton for sure as well. But you need to put him in the position to succeed, and maybe the position where he can most easily succeed is one more like the Porzingis role, essentially, where he's not dribbling as much.
Right, and it's more like almost like Jokic. It's a similar thing where you can stand at the top of the key when you're tall like that, and you can make the kind of reads that other players can't. And it takes a really smart basketball player to be able to do it. And obviously, with Porzingis, the main goal was to get Beal the ball on that play. And with Durant and the Suns and just a much better offensive team, there's going to be a lot of options, and somebody like Kevin Durant can handle those options. Now, I watched a ton of Bradley Beal just from the last two seasons. I tried not to go back far enough where I felt like he's a different player at this point. So I focused on the last two seasons only when watching him play. And I was actually kind of surprised at how different he felt than Devin Booker, because you look at a lot of the stats and they look really similar statistically in a lot of the stats. But then you watch them play and it's pretty different. And I think there's a couple of things that really stand out with Bradley Beal when we're talking about who he is that'll help people to understand what he's going to look like, being that a lot of people listening to this probably have only seen him play a couple times a season for the last few seasons, at most, for most people. And that's, like, for example, Devin Booker has this really sort of slow and careful pace on pick and rolls most of the time, where he likes to get guys on his hip. He likes to sort of abuse them and put them in positions where they can't really guard him, and then he just rises up above and shoots a mid-range shot or gets to the rim, does whatever he does. Bradley Beal on pick and rolls, that first step, he's gone. Like, he's going hard on pick and rolls and driving towards the basket. Now, if there's another defender coming at him, he's really, really great at step backs. So he can hit step backs from 3, he can hit step backs from mid-range, and those are really like lightning quick step backs and hezzies.
The one dribble right to left pullback, he'll go for it almost every time. But he'll try and lull you to sleep first. Like, he'll drive a couple of times first to really get you biting into his first step so that the space is available for the step back. You know what I mean?
And, you know, to add to that, one thing that he does on isolations and pick and rolls is when he hits a crossover and he creates a little space, he'll often turn his back to a defender as sort of a half spin. And then from the position of the half spin, which is often in the mid-range, he can now either turn and drive, he can spin back and shoot a fadeaway, he can just turn and shoot a regular mid-range shot, he can step back and shoot a 3. There's just all these options. It's almost Chris Paul-esque, the way Chris Paul used to Smitty, except that it's more... There's just more options out of it.
Far more
Chris
versatile.
Paul.
Chris Paul, what's so amazing about Chris Paul is you knew what was coming every time with the snake pick and roll, and yet there was still, until he finally...
You're right.
Until age did finally catch up to him.
Right.
But, like, you know, take finals Chris Paul, final season Chris Paul. You knew it was coming, and you just couldn't do anything about it. Right. Beal is going to attack you from the middle of the floor. But from there,
you don't know what's coming.
There's so many directions that he can go. First of all, he's so like flawlessly ambidextrous. I mean, not literally. He's a right-handed player, but he likes attacking from the left side of the court as much as the right. In fact, he actually took more field goal attempts from the left side of the floor than the right side of the floor last season, which is kind of rare for a player who's a righty. He'll get into the middle of the floor. He'll use a combination of hesitation, stutter steps, quick changes of direction. He can float it over the top of you, or he can get you to bite and then, you know, hesitate and go right up and under to the rim. So he's got a vast bag.
On floaters last season. Just wanted to add that in there since you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So good floaters. Doesn't shoot a ton of them, but like the ability to shoot over guys when you can't get to the rim is important.
And couple that, so 52.5% floaters, 71.6% in the restricted area.
Yeah.
I assume you had that stat written down.
Oh yeah.
So sorry if I'm stealing
impressive.
it from you. No. Cleaning the glass has him 94th percentile as a rim finisher. You know, for comparison, Devin Booker was in and around, you know, he was around 69% last season. Like, Booker is already really good. But Beal, to be honest, he drove more often than Booker, and he finished more efficiently than Booker at the rim.
Right.
So, you know, Booker has areas of the court where he is certainly better. But Beal, when it just comes to being a driving presence, like, that was his game last year. More so than Booker, more so than KD.
Where Booker is sort of slow and methodical, Bradley Beal is sort of, it's almost like herky-jerky, to steal a Bill Simmons-ism.
Yeah.
Herky-jerky and in his playmaking. Because those right-to-left crossovers that you mentioned, they're so fast. And from those crossovers, he can step back, but because he's so good at the step back, oftentimes defenders are ready for that. And now that step back becomes a hezzy, right? And then he blows by you to the rim, and guys are just left in the dust because they're diving at his step back because he's so good at doing it. And also, just the basic level of ball handling skills, as far as just crossovers, dribbles between the legs, and stuff like that, they're just a little faster and more decisive than Devin Booker. Mm-hmm. Whereas Devin Booker is so protective of the ball when he's more Chris Paul. You know, he has a little bit of Chris Paul in him. Devin Booker does.
Look, he's 20 pounds heavier than Beal, right?
Yeah,
too. So, I mean, he also Beal can play with his back to the basket as well. It's not an area of his game that he's neglected. But how often does Beal really get a mismatch in the post? He might, ironically, he might get some more with the Suns this year if he's truly playing point guard. He might have some 6-foot guys on him, and maybe we see him play in the post a little bit more. But the average season where Bradley Beal is playing shooting guard, how often is he really getting a size mismatch that he can exploit down there? Whereas for Booker, I feel like it's much more often. So Booker has the advantage, the privilege of being able to play a little bit more methodical, whereas Beal needs to embrace the herky-jerky isms of his game, if you will.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think there's almost like a basketball lineage. The way that sort of, you know, Devin Booker learned from the players that he's played with in the past, you know, he added a lot of Chris Paul to his game when Chris Paul was on the team. You can kind of see that. You can kind of see the John Wall in Bradley Beal sometimes. in that they played together enough, they're going to learn from it. And in fact, I was watching the little half turn. It's not quite a post up, because with Bradley Beal, it's in the. I'm going to post a clip of it for people who are not really understanding what I'm saying. So sometime in the next day or two, you'll see it, where he'll hit a crossover, turn his back, and then from that position, he can shoot a fadeaway turn. It's not quite a post up, but it's also not a post up, in that it's just a brief second of his back into the defender, where he can push off and create some space and then do whatever he needs to do from that. I'm watching that thinking, Devin Booker needs to add this to his game as well. I kind of hope he does learn from that, but I really like it, and I'm really fascinated to see it. One thing we do for these episodes, I think both of us do, is look at the B-Ball Index data for these players. And the reason, by the way, that we use the B-Ball Index, this is not sponsored, let's just say that right away, but the reason we use the B-Ball Index data is because when it comes to advanced stats, what I usually don't like is the advanced stats that are sort of catch-all advanced stats that say this number represents how good a player is at basketball. It's one number, and that's all that matters. I never really like those. What B-Ball Index does, at least for the data that Sam and I tend to use on this podcast, is it looks at individual types of plays, and then it ranks the players based on how other basketball players play in those individual types of plays. Now, when you look at the data in that specific sense, when all of a sudden there's 200 different numbers that represent a player instead of one, you start to understand how they can exist within a role on a team. And the first thing I did was list off all of the stuff where Bradley Beal is listed at an A+. Now, A+ means that he's essentially top 10 players in the NBA last season in these specific categories. And I want to list all of the things that he's listed as an A+ at right now. So I'll say those to you. I'd like to hear your reaction to these. They're not really surprising based on what we talked about, but Here they are. Drives per 75 possessions, so top 10 in drives, which we already knew. Rim shot making, so you talked about it, 71% at the rim. Finishing talent, which is another one of their categories that is based on different types of finishes. So you can finish in different ways at the rim, like you're talking about right hand, left hand, whatever ways you can do it. Here's what I think is fascinating for the Suns. Potential assists per 100 possessions. The Wizards, not a great team in the last few seasons. Bradley Beal, still A+ in this grade for potential assists per 100 possessions on that Wizards team. He's going to play with a lot better offensive players here on the Suns. Box creation, which is a stat that essentially says your ability to create for yourselves and others. Scoring gravity. And then the last one, handoffs, points per possession, where he is, as we talked about it, one of, if not the best at scoring on handoffs in the NBA last season. What's your reaction to all of those things?
The scoring stuff doesn't surprise me at all. The driving, handoffs, I think we knew who he was when he got here. The playmaking stuff I didn't know, though. That is new. That is new to me.
For those who don't know, potential assists are basically passes that lead to shots. And, the player that passes it, they do have some impact as far as whether or not the shot goes in that if you're feeding players bad passes, it makes it harder for them to make the shot, right? Chris Paul, Steve Nash, these guys are really good at not only finding guys open, but also hitting them in the shooting pocket to make the shot as easy and fast as possible before the defenders are able to close out.
Right. But also, if you're consistently...
They don't have a ton of impact.
If you're consistently hitting guys in the corner pocket with like a perfect skip pass, but it's Andre Roberson in the corner, like a 25% three-point shooter, then there's not much you can do about that. So
yeah, and so the potential assist one is interesting, right? When you're talking about how he's going to be able to change in what he does on the Suns. Yeah. Anything else for who he is?
In terms of good stuff, I guess. We talked handoffs, did a little bit of playmaking there, talked finishing. I'll just give a quick nod because I do recognize we're already almost 40 minutes in here. We should move on. But a quick nod to his clutch stats last season.
I didn't look those up.
I don't know. I go back and forth about if I actually care about these, or if I think
they're good. When the Suns players are good, they're good, and when Suns players are bad, they don't matter.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if they actually mean anything, but everyone I feel like knows the definition of clutch as is defined by the NBA's website at this point. It's the game is within 5 points in the final 5 minutes of the game. In those situations last year, Bradley Beal shot 40 of 67 from the field. That is just under 60%. He only took 9 3-point attempts, shot 4 of 9 from deep, but a little strange to me. Shows just how much of an emphasis there was for him scoring either from the mid-range or attacking the rim entirely. But a 68% true shooting percentage overall in the clutch for Bradley Beal on a sample size of 67 shots. Take it or leave it if you want to believe that means anything. But if you do want to read positive things into that, be my guest.
All right, let's talk about. I don't know what to call this section. I guess it's what he can improve on. Usually, it's the internal development part of the podcast, but obviously, this is not internal development. But I think with Bradley Beal, this part of the podcast, what he can improve on, is particularly interesting because it is how he can change what he's already good at, or enhance what he's already good at, or improve what he's bad at, or not as good at,
and I think
to change within the role that he's going to have on the Suns.
And what I want to point out maybe about this segment, I don't know what to call it either, but it's a two-way street when we talk about this stuff. It's how can Bradley Beal improve to or change his role to aid the Suns, but also how can the Suns meet him halfway? And I don't know exactly what you have written down in your notes here, but I suspect that some of the stuff we're talking about here, it's not. The onus won't only be on Beal to just improve these things. The Suns are going to have to meet him halfway, whether that's KD and Book, or DeAndre Ayton, or Frank Vogel being the main actors.
What do you want to talk about first?
Do you want?
I think there's some obvious ones. We can defense. Do you want to talk about defense?
Well, I was going to say that the defensive discussion with him is we gotta talk about it eventually, right? So we'll go there first. Okay. Bradley Beal has traditionally been a bad defender. What notes? Right. What notes do you have on it? I'll let you start.
So, what I did was I thought about this team defensively last season, and then I thought about slotting Bradley Beal into the lineup and tried to figure out how that would impact the Suns defensively this coming year. And what I realized was he's a better defender than Chris Paul. And I think that's an important point to start at. Because I think I think this team has such an obvious emphasis on offense in the way that it's built, but obviously defense is going to be one of the more important things when it comes to winning a championship. They have to be able to defend in the playoffs. And that means that when all three guys are on the floor, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, they can't all take possessions off defensively. We even saw it with Chris Paul. He was picked on over and over and over again. I think if you had to look at a player of these three main guys who will likely be picked on outside of, the obvious, which are the bigs on the team, DeAndre Ayton or whoever's going to be playing at the time, Drew Eubanks if he's on the floor, it's probably Bradley Beal, right? He's the smallest guy who will probably be playing in most of the lineups that he's playing in, and he's going to be picked on. So, the ability to get up there and play basic on-ball perimeter defense is going to be huge for him, especially as a guy who's probably spent the last few years just guarding stationary shooters.
Yes,
most of the time.
Well, it's that, and that's important to know because, again, looking at the B-Ball Index data, it shows that. Basically, that the role Beal had for the past several seasons in Washington, whether it's his fault or not, paints the picture of a guy who wasn't especially engaged on that end. He literally logged less distance. The NBA tracks how much distance players are running in games now, and you can see Beal was mostly guarding stationary shooters. He was not running as much as other players on defense. He just wasn't.
You just don't have to. It's the same with Chris Paul, right?
But
because he was in that Chris Paul role.
That's true.
Defensively.
However, if Vogel does what we think he's going to do, And I'm really not sure, but if he kind of embraces a let's switch 1 through 4 scheme and have Ayton protect the back end, then Beal's going to be running more. He's going to be taking on more difficult assignments. He's going to be the player who is singled out consistently that opposing offenses want to exploit. And so if he's, I mean, a switch defensive scheme is only as good as its weakest link. We've said that definitely plenty of times before.
Yeah.
And so it's on Beal to be passable. I don't think he has to be great, but he certainly can't be worse than Chris Paul. That's the basic standard that we have to hold him to.
Well, first of all, like, these guys at times are going to be guarding really good players. That's all three of them. We're talking all three of Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant. You're no longer allowing yourself, and look, to Devin Booker's credit, he really hasn't been like this in a while because Chris Paul was on the team, but you can't be the guy that's being hidden on defense anymore. Because at least one of them will be guarding really good offensive players when they play good teams. Obviously, on bad teams, they might only have one good offensive player, and you can put, I don't know, KDB or KBD on them or something like that. But outside of that, these guys have to guard. And that means you can't die on screens when it's a DeAndre Ayton and you're not switching. You have to chase. You have to go over. You have to run hard. Now, when it comes to a comparison of Chris Paul and Bradley Beal, one thing I will say, just the basic on-ball perimeter defensive grade that B-Ball Index uses, and this is just the ability to defend on the ball based on tracking stats. Bradley Beal last season graded as a B-. Chris Paul last season, do you have any idea what Chris Paul graded at last season on defense as an on-ball perimeter defender?
C-?
D-.
D-. Okay.
He was bad.
I'm gonna guess.
I think you could call him one of the worst.
I mean, D-
on-ball perimeter defenders in the NBA.
I'm gonna guess that Chris Paul rated out better than Beal as like a deflections guy.
Turnover machine, yeah.
Just he created turnovers, but that's not the
and
same
Bradley
thing.
Beal doesn't. To that point, like Bradley Beal's not going to be out there creating fast breaks with his defense the way Chris Paul and his fast hands do.
Yeah, but what's the point? This was always now it feels like we're picking on Chris Paul a little bit, which is not the intention of this episode.
But this is the guy he's replacing.
But
defensively, I think it's an important conversation.
Also, what's the point of generating turnovers if you're not
going to run?
If you're not even going to run, right?
Really
that was always a Chris Paul issue too. So ideally, we get a version of Bradley Beal who I think is more motivated on defense because instead of taking 20 shots a game on offense, he's taking 14 or 15. And so we see all of that extra conserved energy spread out to other areas of the floor, which means A, he plays better defense, but B, they also pick up the pace. That's the ideal.
The other
I can't
good
guarantee
news,
that all happens.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's as far as these guys finding a way to sort of embrace a new role, it's hard to know if any of it's going to happen until we see it. And also how long it's going to take for it to really take hold. It could be right away. It could take half the season. It could be right before the playoffs that it all clicks. They have enough offensive talent to win games to make the playoffs without that. But embracing a role, understanding a role, and really knowing how to contribute to win, I think it's going to, I don't know. I think it's going to take a little more time than we think. And maybe even for Bradley Beal, it might be the largest adjustment so far. I will say, you love this stat, ball screen navigation, running around chasing guys. His grade for that is better than Chris Paul's as well. Now, as far as guys running around, this is not surprising, of course, right? Chris Paul's old. But that's good news because he might be one of those guys that has to run around and guard. Instead of stationary shooters, there's a good chance that he's guarding the Desmond Baines, the Klay Thompsons now. Yeah. Instead of Draymond Green or something. But there are also maybe times where he is hidden on a bigger player and he has to, the way Chris Paul was, and he has to box out, he has to fight for rebounds, which is not exactly something he's done in the past as well, offensive rebounds. So finding ways to change that role, maybe if you get the offensive rebound, you get to be the one who dribbles it down. It's not the worst thing to do. So that I think is defensively, as far as he goes, is probably the biggest thing that he needs to change as far as mentality, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of one of the biggest things that could make or break the Suns season without being too dramatic is this team, for as incredible as their offensive ceiling is, can't afford to be 22nd in defensive rating. There are some levels of a defensive floor that just wouldn't be sustainable for them. And I think as other pundits are looking at this Suns roster coming in, they're within reason, they're circling Bradley Beal's name and they're signaling him. And kind of that's the biggest question mark about him right now.
And as important as his defense is going to be in the regular season, when these guys, their minutes go up in the playoffs and the game plans become hyper-focused on maximizing every single play for the other teams, his defense will be even more important in the playoffs. So it's going to be fascinating to see. Now, something I really like that you said when talking about this segment of the podcast was it's not just about him changing. It's about what the Suns can do as a team to maximize him as well. It's a conversation we've had with DeAndre Ayton and really everyone, but it's about how the team can maximize what he's going to do. Now, this is going to be an obvious part of this conversation. Off the ball, right? What can Bradley Beal do off the ball? Now, I want to get into that, and I want to talk about that, but because of the way you framed it, I think it's important to say the Suns have to give him a lot of reps on the ball as well, right? They can't just take it away from him. He's really good when he's on the ball. They have to find a way to split up the offense between these three players by staggering their minutes in a way that allows all three of them to handle the ball for significant portions of the game.
And you said it right there. The easiest way to do it is through staggering. There will be, I mean, they have to do it in a way too that I guess doesn't offend any particular one party. Like if Book is consistently playing minutes with KD and then Beal is just like running the second unit, I don't know how Beal is going to feel about that. Maybe he'll be fine with it. Maybe he'll just be like, hey, this is so much easier than what I had to deal with in Washington. But I assume he'll also want to be on the floor with KD and Book occasionally. And even when he is on the floor with those guys, he'll want to be put into spots where he's playmaking for them. And I have no qualms about them being able to do that and the fact that it would look like good basketball because Beal is a talented playmaker. I don't think there are any questions about that.
What do you think about him off the ball? You probably have. I think there's one obvious stat we can talk about when it comes to him, but what do you think?
I think I know what you're going to talk about here. I don't know what the obvious stat is, though.
40% catch and shoot from three.
Okay.
It's a really basic one.
Sure.
That's what he shot last season. So he's off the ball, catching the ball, shooting. He can shoot 40% from three.
So early in his career, he had tons of really easy, really great looks generated for him by John Wall. No surprise that he used to shoot a better three-point percentage. In recent seasons, he's had to rely more on the pull-up three. He can make it, but here are his pull-up three-point percentages over the last 4 years: 33, 31, 31, and 33%. So it's not, I wouldn't call that ideal offense. Kind of feels like, some of the stuff we critiqued Book on a couple of years ago and maybe like literally an internal development episode saying he needs to get better at his pull-up three, and then he did. So yeah, there's the spot up stuff. Like the more Beal is willing to play spot up, the better his 3-point percentage is going to get and all that. On the other hand, because I referenced it earlier in this episode, like just sticking Beal in the corner is not good to me. That's not good offense. That's not how you keep him engaged. Right. And that's not how you maximize your offense, like literally from an efficiency standpoint. I think one really interesting thing, and this is where I'm pretty sure I knew you wanted to talk about this too, but using Beal as a screener is going to be something that I think I would hope they experiment with in the offense this year. It's something that Washington even experimented with just like a tiny bit last year as compared to previous seasons where they didn't really do it at all. And it's going to make a lot of sense this season because, again, if Beal's going to be the point guard and if he's going to be the smallest guy on the court, if he's going to be guarded by the smallest guy on the court, then the more comfortable that Beal is with setting screens for KD and Booker when they're on the ball, he will be able to generate easy mismatches for them. And then sometimes he'll be rewarded as well. The stat that I have here says he was the pick and roll man, so not the ball handler as you would expect, but he was the roll man on only 15 possessions last season according to Synergy, and scored 1.07 points per possession on those plays, which is good, but obviously a very, very small sample size. I'd like to see them use it more often.
And not the best not the most accurate stat as well, unfortunately.
Sometimes
screens are just they're not they're for switches. They're not always just for rolling on pick and rolls. Yes, and I think for the Suns, I just want to add to what you're saying. He needs to screen. I think they all do, right? There needs to be a culture of everyone does everything on this team in some respects, and that starts with Devin Booker, I think. And I just want to say I'm incredibly grateful for him. Not that this is his episode, but I'm incredibly grateful that he has shown a willingness to do those types of things in the past in a way that not all superstars do. But as long as he's willing to show that on this play, I will be the decoy. On this play, I will put my body in jeopardy to set that screen for you because on the next play, you're going to do it. That type of thing is going to be, I think, really important for this offense to work because there's no Chris Paul. There's no one guy that's going to be handling the ball 75% of the time when he's on the floor and then finding a perfect shot every single time he passes it. It's just going to be different. So that means Bradley Beal needs to do that. Devin Booker needs to do it. Kevin Durant is another player, by the way, who's been willing to do this in the past. So he needs to do it as well. Now, you talked about how he's done it before, Bradley Beal. And he's not really doing it anymore. Now, I want to say that's called development. Bradley Beal going from a really good off-ball player to a really good on-ball player is a really good thing, right? The fact that he's done both is really important for the Suns. But I will point it out. 2016-17, synergy stats here. He took the 8th most on-the-move catch-and-shoot shots in the NBA in 2016-17 and the 3rd most what they call relocation catch-and-shoot attempts in the NBA in 2016-17. Why? Well, he had John Wall. John Wall was healthy that season, and he found him open on the move a lot. We talked about those handoffs. Like you said, you don't do it by standing still in the corner. You do it by moving, and that's the way to get open. But in 2023, he took the 8th most in 2016-17. In 2023, he took 8 total on the move catch-and-shoot shots. And 63 relocation shots, which is still a pretty good number for the amount of games that he played.
Who was Washington's point guard in 2018? I have to look it up.
John Wall. Oh, 2018. It was still John Wall, but John Wall wasn't healthy in 2018. He played 41 games.
Yeah, John Wall played 41 games. Let's see who
and then
started.
32, and then he was gone. Yeah. So it just, it was 2023 was the year he had 8.
Oh, it was actually this was your guy. Do you remember Tomas Satoransky?
Yeah.
I feel like this was your guy for a couple seasons. Whatever happened to him.
I still contend he would have been an excellent backup guard. 6'5", point guard skills is not the worst thing to have.
He is only
actually, maybe he's even taller.
This is a guy who just kind of quietly retired from the NBA. He's only He's only 31 years old, and I feel like could still play. But anyway,
I just want to point out, by the way, you mentioned Thomas Satoransky.
Uh-huh.
I looked because I know that I've been mocking up fake trades for Bradley Beal since 2019 on this podcast. I have. And I looked back to see when the first time I tweeted about it was. It was October 2020. But when I looked it up, I looked up tweets where I talked about Bradley Beal, and I found multiple tweets where I was talking about how Satoransky and Beal look good together on the floor.
Yeah. Yes.
For the Wizards.
No,
I wanted Sato, man. I thought he would have been good on the Suns.
I distinctly remember this was definitely a thing. This was a fetish of yours, for sure.
Yeah, he was good. I liked him. Tall players with point guard skills, it's not that complicated. I always tend to like players like that. Anyway, continue what you were saying.
No, you continue.
If I didn't completely derail you.
We have been derailed. I just wanted to see the level of point guards after post John Wall that Beal was playing with, kind of in that era, because I honestly did not remember who it was. Obviously, the last year was like Monte Morris. That's not going to do anything. But yeah, it was kind of just 5 years of that.
All of those stats, for me at least, to say that he is a really capable off-the-ball player. Really capable and experienced. He's done it before. It's not going to be something where he's completely new to this role. But it's been a while. In the last 2 seasons, John Wall was with the Wizards, which were 17-18, 18-19. He played 41 and 32 games respectively. And then, of course, we know what happened in the future. Russell Westbrook joined, and he had the ability to play off the ball. But at that point, Bradley Beal was essentially on the ball for half the game as well. And that's good. It's good that he's grown. It's good that he can do both. But there will be times where he has to play off the ball much, much more than he has in the last 5 seasons. And there will be times where he's on the ball a lot more. Devin Booker luckily has experience doing both with Chris Paul, Ricky Rubio as his last 2 point guards, and I think he'll be fine. I mean, we're going to get to it later with Kevin Durant, but I honestly think Kevin Durant might have to make the largest adjustment when it comes to playing off the ball with these 2 guys, being that he's the oldest. And, I don't know. He's so efficient off the ball, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, he's so efficient, has so much gravity, and is the least likely to drive of all 3 of them at this point. So it kind of just makes... But again, we should probably save that for the KD episode.
Yes. Now, I just want to mention one thing, unless you have more on the off-the-ball thing.
No, not on the off-the-ball thing.
This is not something that we can just will into existence here, but, the other part about Bradley Beal that you can point at, that you can be a little worried about, is in the last 3 seasons, he played 50, 40, and 60 games. And then before that, 57 games. He did have 2 seasons in a row with 82 games played in 17, 18, 18, 19. But since then, he's suffered injuries in every single season that's kept him out for significant portions of the season, up to, a third to even half of the season in previous seasons. His role will be different. His play style will be different. Similar injuries to Devin Booker in that it's often his hamstring that holds him out. And those hamstring injuries tend to return at different times. But taking care of his body, finding the ways to avoid injury, it's not something that we can say that he can just decide to do and then do. But it's going to be really, really important for the Suns that he's healthy come playoff times. And throughout, by the way, a long extended playoff run in order for the Suns to be successful in their main goal, which is winning a championship this season. I don't know if you have much to say about that, but it's important for him to be healthy, right?
Obviously, it's important for him to be healthy. Kind of contrasts with my last point on something that he could improve on, though, which I'm only kind of thinking about now. I just wanted to single out his rebounding as well. I think you mentioned it really briefly. But I don't know if you noticed, just Bradley Beal's not a good rebounder.
He's not.
Low on the totem pole of things that matter for a guard. Especially
they were on the break so much on that team in the Wizards team. They were running a lot.
Yeah, but he averaged 4.2 boards per 36 last season, which was that was less than Chris Paul's rate. Just to give an example. So I think my modest goal, I don't think this is asking too much. My modest goal is I think it would be nice if Bradley Beal can average more rebounds on a permanent rate than Chris Paul this season.
Yes, I agree with that, especially because he's going to be
4 inches taller
at times. Yeah, and he's going to be at times, not always, but at times he will be guarding the power forward that is a standstill shooter in certain lineups.
That doesn't,
and that means that guy's going to start attacking the boards. He has to box him out,
right? And it's just it's a continuation of your everyone does everything motto, right? It's not that the responsibility should constantly fall on Beal to be boxing out guys who are 50 pounds heavier than him, but sometimes he might have to. It's not that I want him to sacrifice his body to relentlessly crash the offensive boards, but sometimes he's going to be in the thick of things. So it's just does kind of contrast, because I hope that doesn't. I'm not suggesting he plays a contact heavy brand of basketball that gets him injured faster or anything, but just sometimes he's going to have to really embrace not just the skill side of basketball, which we know he's kind of mastered already from an offensive perspective, but the effort side of things as well, as he becomes a little bit less of a star and a little bit more of a role player.
Our one of our listeners is from France. Shout out to, is it Gregor? Is that how you say his name?
Grégoire.
Grégoire, thank you.
Yeah.
You know French. I don't want to do it incorrectly. But he referred to this, what I said as everyone does everything. This is the culture that they need to have. He referred to it in French as total basketball, which in soccer, there's total football. And total football is where every player can play any position based on where the ball goes. And that's kind of what the Suns need to be. It's total basketball, and it's going to be fascinating to see. So I just wanted to shout him out because I thought that was a great way of describing it. But it's going to be a theme, I think, now that I dug into the film of the next few episodes as we talk about these guys. And yes, once again, grateful for Devin Booker.
Makes me think of Total Recall mostly.
Oh, I like that too. It's a super weird movie. All right. I mean, there's more things we can talk about, but I think I covered all the main things I wanted to cover.
We talked defense. We talked off-ball impact. This is all for like stuff where Beal needs to change his role a little bit / improve. Defense, rebounds,
playmaking,
off-ball. Playmaking, I think we covered in the first part, man. I think it's pretty good. What could be?
It's good, and yeah.
What do you want to see more out of his playmaking?
Once I saw that he was basically an A+ in potential assists, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to ask for here? The guys need to finish. He makes some really. I watched a lot of film where he was passing to Montrezl Harrell, and he made some really good passes to Montrezl Harrell on the roll. DeAndre Ayton needs to be ready, have his hands up, because he makes those bounce passes from the 3-point line all the way into the paint, and I actually think he could do really well with him. We talked about it on a previous episode. Ayton's probably the best center. I mean, if you count Porzingis as a center, you can say Porzingis is better than Ayton or whatever you want to say there, but I think Ayton has a good case for the best center that Bradley Beal's ever played with.
Didn't we say
his time
we
on
said
the Washington Wizards?
And didn't we say DA is probably the best center KD's ever played with too?
Yeah,
that's how we originally
right.
phrased it, right?
Yes. So I think it's a similar thing too here. So Ayton obviously a really great finisher at the rim, and I think Beal can find him. He's good at passing it out to shooters because when you're good at driving, you draw so much attention that you have to get good at passing out to shooters. So I think he can do that pretty well. But it's a shared role now. It's not going to be all his. But I think the major difference between this team and the Wizards is when they double team him on the Wizards, sometimes it was still the best shot if Bradley Beal shot it. Now, it's probably not. It could be Eric Gordon. It could be Yuta. It could be Devin Booker. It could be Kevin Durant. It could be
96% of the time, I feel like it's Kevin Durant. Maybe that's not fair to Devin Booker.
You're right, but I do think a corner 3-point shot from Yuta that goes in 50% of the time might be the best shot on the team.
But that's true. And Kevin Durant dominates so much of the floor. But as we saw with some of the playmaking woes that he had in the playoffs in occasional games where he was turning the ball over, that doesn't mean just force feeding Kevin Durant the ball 30 times a game would not make for a winning strategy, right? So this is why you build out multiple options into every single set.
What are you the most confident on him improving?
Oh man, of all the stuff, well, I think
that we just mentioned,
we talked about the screening. That's one of the things that I feel like already wasn't bad. I just think they should do more of it, and I think they're going to do more of it, and I think it's just going to look good. I feel confident about Vogel or Kevin Young or whoever it's going to be finding ways to really leverage Beal's ability to make life easier for both Booker and Durant. And I think that will look really good. The defense is probably the part that I don't know. I'd say I'm in the middle about his defense. Maybe least confident. I'm just like ranking all the things that we just talked about, right? Rebounding, I want him to get better as a rebounder. I'm not sure it's actually going to happen.
Yeah, he's not going to be a 6 rebound
I'm just
game
leveling
season,
with you.
Right.
In his 11th season.
He's not Josh Hart.
Right. He's just probably not going to do it. I would like him to be a 5 rebound a game guy instead of 4.2. That would be great. But I don't know if it's going to happen. Defense, I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle. How do you feel about that?
I think that's fair. If we're including playmaking, I think there's a chance that this team passes too much to start the season, and there's going to be moments where each guy has to remember that they're all badasses and need to shoot more often of the 3 main guys. Because I just think there's going to be this, we want to win a championship, we're going to play the right way. I think it's something Devin Booker's really proud of. I think it's something Kevin Durant's really proud of. And the leaders, it all starts from the top. And I think there's going to be a little bit of that to start the season. So
I would not be surprised.
I think that's number 1.
Who's our opening game against? We talked about it on the pod, and I already can't remember. It's not Denver, right? It's
Golden
Dallas?
State Warriors in San Francisco.
Okay, so Dallas was what, the Christmas game? So Golden State.
Christmas.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if, well, maybe KD's motivated by being in Golden State and all that, but if KD, Book, Beal looking a little passive in the first game, I don't know, Suns are down by like 5.
Looking for each other.
Yeah, they're just looking for each other. Suns go down by like 5, take a timeout, 4 minutes left in the first quarter. Eric Gordon checks in, just starts bombing threes. I could see the starters being a little hesitant.
Yeah, that dude's great.
Being a little hesitant of trying to figure out who are we really funneling
he knows
the
his
offense
role
through here?
Eric Gordon's role is not confusing.
But then Eric Gordon,
it's not complicated.
Eric Gordon's going to come
shoot.
in and he's going to bomb it from 30 feet away, and it's going to be pretty clear what he's paid to do on this team.
I love it. You mean Eric Gordon when he starts, right? That's what you mean.
Well, that's a future conversation that we have to have.
Yeah, maybe the last episode will be a Eric Gordon episode. No, we already did that with Shane. I think defense might be the thing I'm second. The thing about defense when it comes to Bradley Beal is I think my expectations are set in a way that I don't expect him to be this all defense defender, but I think he will have one of his best defensive seasons, being that the amount of offensive control that he has to have on this team is going to be reduced from previous teams. I think it'll still be pretty high amount. But I think that it will be lower than any time in his career post point guards, like, once John Wall started becoming the player that he was, which was injured. That means I think he could put more effort into it defensively. I think it's going to be part of the Suns' culture with Frank Vogel, and I think they're all going to be prepared. So I think defense is probably the next thing. Yeah, rebounding, I could see it not being that great. And actually,
but you know what?
It's also see the off the ball stuff taking a little time for him to get used to as well.
Right.
It's
for sure.
That stuff takes repetition. There's a reason Klay Thompson can shoot in an eighth of a second. After a full sprint, it's because he's done it 1,000 times. It's not exactly just something that people are naturally good at.
I am willing to.
So
bet,
I do think that might take a little bit of time as well.
First of all, on the rebounding part, it's not that important, even though I'm the one who brought it up. And then for the off-ball stuff, I'm willing to bet even if it takes a while for Beal to get his chops back, he's going to be better than Landry Shamet. So I feel pretty confident in saying that. Even at his lowest, there is no possible way that he could be screwing it up more than Landry Shamet.
And look, not that this is an important thing here, but when it comes to injuries, if he takes 20 games off in the middle of the season because he's injured, as long as he's healthy in the playoffs, none of that matters. I just need him, and we need him as a team and as fans to be healthy in those games. Outside of that, if you haven't already listened to it, those listening to this, go back and listen to our episode with Joe House. We covered basketball. These episodes are very basketball focused. And that's the main part of enjoying Bradley Beal as a fan. But another part is off the court. And Joe House had a lot to say with the type of person that Bradley Beal was off the court. And I have a feeling it's going to be really fun to root for him, because a lot of what we're going to see from him is just that he seems to be a really great person that people really like, that cares about the community and things like that. And I'm pretty excited for those parts as well.
I think he's going to win over fans really fast. I am excited to get my hands on a Bradley Beal jersey. I do not have one yet. I don't have a Durant jersey yet either, as a matter of fact.
We didn't have that much time.
Yeah, I need...
with Durant.
We're
both. Doing a Durant episode in this series. Even though he is already on the Suns, it's still external development in my mind for Kevin Durant. It's not really internal development. We're in a different world with Durant.
Yeah, so I need to get my hands on both of those things. As for all of the basketball talk in this podcast, it's been fun. We did still hit the people with 10 minutes of Devin Booker marketing top off the top. I'll let you know. So we snuck in some non-basketball talk in there somewhere, but yeah, hopefully.
Well, we got a good amount of time on Bradley Beal. I'm excited.
Hopefully people like the discussion. Let us know if you did or didn't.
I'm going to post Bradley Beal clips the rest of the week so people know what I'm talking about when it comes to some of this stuff. But thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. We'll be back with a Patreon episode midweek. We really appreciate everyone who is patrons. And if you're joining before the season, we thank you as well. Patreon.com/thetimeline. If you join, anyone who joins can join our Discord for as low as $3 a month, for $6 a month. You can get an extra podcast episode every single week with Sam and I talking about the most popular stories of that time. This week, we'll probably talk about Devin Booker's shoes, and I'm excited to talk about that on this week's episode. But thanks, everyone, for listening. Back very, very soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, blue label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.